All right, Mr. Chair, we have a full board.
All right, call to order. Welcome to the July 12th meeting. It's about 6:30. Anybody here for the Commissioners' Public Forum? Hearing none. Paul, you want to move on to the minutes, warrants, and abatements?
Good evening, everyone. I would first like to make a motion to approve the minutes of January 7th, June 7th, 2021 as written.
Second,
All right,
Russ
Gotcha.
wasn't. Who seconded?
I believe Russ did.
Russ
I
wasn't
did.
there.
That's all right. He can still second it.
You can.
All right, roll call vote, Peter, please.
All right, Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
abstain.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
I would next like to make a motion to approve the following warrants. First of all, we have commissioner salaries of $500. And then we have three from Veolia, the first one being May emergency services at the wastewater treatment plant for $129.54. Another for Veolia for monthly services for June, $39,096.64. And Veolia one more time for the May testing of the labs at the Turnpike 5 East and 6 West for $184. Next, we have Impact Fire for annual extinguisher maintenance, $662.80. And then FM generator for the wastewater treatment plant portable service, $187.50. And again, FM generator for service at 5 East, $187.50. Next, we have Beta services from May 29th to June 25th, 2021, $3,939.30. Next is EDS Mechanical Services to the upper office air conditioner unit, $210. And finally, McClure Engineering from the waterline construction, $775 for a grand total of $45,872.28.
I'll second that motion.
All right, roll call vote, Peter.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye. All right. Let's see here. What do we got? 6:35 scheduled appointments.
Yes, I believe Vinny is here to go over his MOU from May.
Yes,
Hi,
I'm
Vinny.
here to go over May's MOR. For the month of May, the plant had staffing of myself, Dylan Moriarty, and Thomas Potvin. Health and safety, we followed all the COVID-19 protocols that Veolia had in place at the time. May's safety training, we did it on JJ Keller. It was on safety showers and eye washes, basically how to maintain them, when to inspect them, and hazardous substances incident spill responses. So if we spill a chemical, basically it gave us how to clean it up without getting ourselves in trouble. Compliance for the month of May. In the month of May, we sampled the effluent and receiving waters upstream of the discharge for whole effluent toxicity. We did this test on the first week of May. You collect samples 3 days out of the week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, send them out to the lab, and about 2 weeks later, they reported back that that the lab standard and the receiving waters didn't meet minimum criteria. So they asked us to resample. So the week of May 16th, we sampled 3 more days, sent those out, and about 3 weeks after they got those, they reported back that we had passed the acute section, but we didn't meet the chronic section. The bugs they were testing with had a 50% reproduction rate, and the permit states we need a 93% to pass. So we had to report a failed bioassay to the EPA and DEP. And the only reason we couldn't retest is our permit states we have to complete it in the month of May. So once we got outside of the month of May, we couldn't try anymore to pass it. It looked to me like they may have had some bad bugs from the way the first test went. I mean, for the lab standard not to pass, that's kind of an indicator that they had something going on at their lab. Moving on from there.
So now what, Vinny, with that? We're not in compliance. Where we have to change something?
Well, there's nothing you can really change because all the other parameters are where they needed to be. So as long as the EPA and DEP don't send us any corrective measures, we just move on and hope next time we do pass.
Okay, all right.
So moving on from there, 208 Sunset, we had to report a sanitary sewer overflow. And the overflow is caused by a broken fitting. And when the contractors dug it up, they found electrical tape around the fitting. And it looks like it was right underneath a retaining wall. So it looks like when they put the retaining wall in, they broke the sewer and, you know, just tried fixing it themselves from Home Depot or something. The contractors that did the repair was SBC Construction, and he worked with Gothia Construction. They did a great job. They got out there, they took good care of the customer. Slims cleaned the wet well a few times over the weekend, so there were no worries of any spills throughout the weekend. That same week, there was another sewer leak, but it never surfaced at 62 Hollywood. And the only reason they knew there was something going on is the grass was really green. So they had their own contract to dig it up. They contacted us when it was time to make the repair. We went out, inspected it. They used all the right components. They picked them up at FR Mahoney in Southbridge. They're plastic compression couplings. They're really strong. They're made for that exact application. Getting down to operations and maintenance activities. We had a mechanical issue with the pretreatment unit. And because of that, we redirected the flow through the bar rack, and the bar rack doesn't have an influent flow meter. So there were no influent flow readings for the month of May. We finished building our temporary spill containment for the pack totes. The containment is big enough to hold 1,500 gallons of whatever. Hopefully it never needs to be used, but it is there in case there's a pack spill. We did RBC proficiency testing in May, and that is where we grab a sample from every RBC from the effluent, and we run an ammonia test on it, and that just tells us if they're removing ammonia the way they're supposed to be. And if we find any that are not removing ammonia properly, we throttle their flow and give them a chance to build back some biofilm so they can start treating better. In your package, you'll see I attached a little picture. We made some splash covers for the RBC effluent chambers. If any of you guys have ever been through the plant and you see where this picture's taken, the pipes to the right, they were always covered in this like brown film, and it's just this little mist that periodically comes out of the tanks and eventually builds up into something gross looking. So we're hoping those covers we made will stop that from happening. Zach spent a couple days out at the plant in May, and me and him talked a lot about process, and we did some jar testing. And one of the things we discussed was moving the ferric injection point. We were injecting the ferric into the RAS line, which is the returned activated sludge. So what we were doing is we were injecting the ferric, and it was carrying it back to the head of the plant. So it was treating all of the influent before it got to any clarification. And Zach seemed to think that if we injected it to the secondary clarifiers, it might work better at a lower dose. So we made that change, and the clarifiers really look a lot different than they did prior to that. They're nice and clear when it settles out now. The other thing we noticed when we were doing the jar testing is we seem to be a little light on magnetite. And when I was reading through the process control management plan, it kind of points out that we were dosing a little light on the magnetite. And that's the ballast for the Comag system. So basically what we were adding every day was 4 pounds. Was enough for the process to work, but we weren't adding any to the tank inventory. We were just replacing what we had lost. So we upped that to 8 pounds a day per train. And now we're starting to build a ballast inventory. And hopefully in a couple of months, we'll be able to throttle it down to like 6 pounds and be in a good spot. LaFleur came out to give us a quote on the shed that you guys had approved. You actually, I believe you approved the wiring for it too already, but that happened in the beginning of May. So just wanted to note that on here. We performed a total plant solids test, and that's a little different than what we normally do. We do a MLSS every day, which is a mixed liquor solids concentration. And that tells us what we have for solids inventory in our clarifiers, but it doesn't tell us what we have in the whole plant. So while Tom was there, he did the whole plant solids testing, and we came up with what the plant had for total solids, which was really close to what we thought, but it was just a neat test to run. We cleaned out the shed. There was a lot of old packaging from equipment that was previously purchased, and I don't know, somebody likes storing old boxes, so there was a bunch of them in there. There was also a lot of old broken parts that people were saving the salvage stuff from. We got rid of those. I mean, the equipment's already gone. We're saving broken parts and old equipment for stuff that's already been updated. So that stuff all got out of there, and we made some room. We drained clarifier number 2 and disassembled all the piping. And in one of the corners of the piping, we pulled out a good solid 2 handfuls of sticks with leaves and stuff in it. And that was giving us trouble with razzing. We weren't sure what we were going to find, but we knew there had to be something, because one clarifier, we could razz 100 gallons a minute, and the other one, we couldn't get over 30 gallons a minute. So we knew there was something in the line, and it was a matter of just taking all that piping apart to find it. And it was a couple of day project. In the month of May, the SCADA project kicked off. The Wooden and Curran contractors came in, and they met with LaFleur, and we all talked and went through what the project's going to consist of, and the project manager started developing his plan of attack, and he sent us a schedule that they're going to try to follow to get this thing done. Looks like it's going to happen pretty quick, maybe a 2-month period, and we should be done with that. We did.
Vinny, are they gonna have to shut the plant down?
No. That's kind of the reason LaFleur is doing the job. They can do 90% of this project with the plant working. And the few pieces that they will have to shut down, we'll be able to work around.
All right.
Yeah, it was really a benefit for them doing the work, because they know the plant so well.
Sure.
So back to the operations office. There was literally 100 storage boxes up there, just filled with old paperwork and like a construction, a pre-bid and stuff like that. It was just this old, not needed paperwork. So Don Benz is a business relations partner for Veolia, and he spent a day up there with us, just going through everything, saying, you know, there's no reason to store this. You got to save that. And we just went through everything we could. And we got rid of a lot of that old excess paperwork that just didn't serve any purpose. It was a nice spring cleaning. We did get a pack bulk delivery and a ferric bulk delivery in the month of May. And those occur 3 to 4 times per year. So that was a busy month getting 2 of them. Pump station activities, we did the daily checks at the flow meter, 5 East, North Main, and 6 West. The stations that have buildings, we clean the outsides of the building and the inside. Grinder pump calls, we only had 1. That was 12 Morton Station Road. It was an upgraded system, and all that was wrong with it was a stuck float. And I see a typo here. Dig safes for the month of May were 176. April had 175, just so you guys know. I did change the number. I missed the month in that. And that concludes the MOR for May 2021. Any questions?
Another big month of dig safes, huh, Vinny?
Yeah, what it is, Dave, is they issue this whole batch of them for all those water line connections.
Oh, yeah, you told me that's right.
There's over 100 of them, and they literally just pump it out every month. And I'm at this point, I'm not even sure if they're taking off what they're finishing or if they're just recalling them all.
Okay.
So we still got to filter through them all and see what's legit and what's not.
So you're
yeah.
not going down and marking these things, are you?
No, once we've been there once, we're not going back. So
Okay.
I filter through them every month, and we go out and mark the ones we have to, and the rest of them just go into a folder.
Okay.
But I mean, we did receive them all, so it wouldn't be fair to not note it.
Sure. All right, anybody have any questions? Hearing none, thank you, Vinny.
All right, thank you, guys.
Pete, 6:45.
Yeah, so I don't see Chris McClure signing on, but maybe we can just go over it. I'll get, in case he comes on, I'll give you guys, I'll start going through it. So Charlton Center Plaza, so you have the old Carpentier Plaza with the 4 businesses in it, is 109 Masonic Home Road. And then the Family Pizza Building at 105 Masonic Home Road. They're both connecting to water. They currently have a shared well, that's a public water supply well. The DEP has been on them to stop using that well, as it doesn't really meet any of the requirements to be a public water supply. So the 105 Masonic Home Road, the Family Pizza Building has already been connected, and 109, the old Carpentier Plaza, is in the process of getting connected. As part of that, this property does not fall under the ExxonMobil project. And I also checked with the Board of Health and the town administrator. It does not fall under the town highway garage project either. So these 2 properties are responsible for their own connections. So as part of that, there is a Title V water privilege fee that they will have to pay. A copy of that water privilege fee policy is in your packet. It's attached. So, and then McClure Engineering has also done Title V calculations for both of these properties that are attached. We had one in time to put with the packet. The one for 109 came in on late Friday afternoon. So for 105 Masonic Home Road, the Family Pizza property, you'll see that based on Title V flows, to do the restaurant portion of it is pretty straightforward, because it's just the number of seats times so many gallons per day per seat. So that comes out to 480 gallons per day. The secondary component is the residential, or it's the rental property that they have on the 2nd floor of that building. There are 3 rentable apartments, so 3 different living units with a total of 3 bedrooms. This is where we differ from Title V in our assessment of privilege fees and betterments. Each living unit is its own EDU. At least that's the way it's been done in the past, whether it's 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, or 3 bedrooms. Much like if a home is going to connect, they get assessed one EDU, regardless if it's 1 bedroom or 6. And I think the reason that was done was so that we weren't in the process of policing number of bedrooms in houses We didn't have to go and look and determine if a bedroom was a closet, and we didn't have to get stuck playing all those games. As far as betterments and privilege fees have been concerned, one house is one EDU, one apartment is one EDU. So for a duplex to connect, they would pay 2 EDUs because it would be 2 separate dwelling units. So as I said, as I go through our policy and historically how it's been assessed, the Title V flow for the restaurant would be 480 gallons for the restaurant. And based on your flow, that would get multiplied by 0.6 and then divided by 200 based on the policy. And that would give you so many gallons per day. And then they would also have to pay 3 additional EDU betterments based on the apartments above. So I believe they're requesting that instead of doing it that way, you assess them based on 110 gallons per day for each bedroom upstairs and only assess them 330 gallons per day for each of the bedrooms, which will reduce their privilege fee quite a bit. So,
Through
Peter,
the chair, if I might.
go ahead, Russ.
Peter, is the applicant on this evening, first of all?
no, neither the applicant nor Chris McClure is on yet.
Did they specify a reason why they think they would be asking for the break other than just from a monetary perspective?
No, I think the only reason was for a monetary perspective.
So in the past, we've never given anyone a break under these terms and conditions. We've always stuck with our policies.
Correct. Not that I'm aware of since I've been here.
Okay, so there's no pre-existing.
No.
Okay.
Nope. Again, water privilege fees are fairly new, and we haven't assessed many of them, but as far as sewer goes, no, I don't think there's ever been any variance from 1 EDU per dwelling unit. So, we've had numerous, like I said, duplexes that might be 1 or 2 bedroom units tie in, and they get charged 2 EDUs, 1 for each rentable side. So,
Peter, can you tell
Well,
me
then-
what if they pay the EDU for each apartment and for the pizza shop? How much is that?
just give me 1 second.
Isn't it like, it's close to 11 grand?
0.6.
Well, through the chair, if we're to give this applicant a break, it would be very hard to say no to the next person that comes along. And if someone's building a multi-unit apartment building and they said, well, it's just one building and I want you guys to do it all by the gallon like you did in the past for this applicant, we could run into very, very large, very, very large issues on both sides of the equation.
So if you do it as per our policy and have as we've done in the past, it's approximately $10,900.
As opposed to,
10,900?
10,900.
as
If you-
opposed to what,
As
Peter?
opposed to they are requesting,
5,900.
no, it'll be more than that.
At 2.4?
As opposed to 9,900.
So they're looking to save $1,000, Peter?
Oh, no, sorry, I was supposed to, give me one, sorry. No. 4.
I mean, I want to know what the number is, but I think you're right, Russ. I don't think it really matters what the number is. I think we have a protocol that we've all gone by for a period of time, and like you said, it's hard to not have somebody come in front of you and say, I want, you to assess my property like you did for this particular property.
Well, yeah, if someone comes along with multiple units somewhere in the future and they have, multiple apartments in each one, it's going to be very costly on the town side. And then it would be a negative situation for us. So, if you're going to deviate from the policy on a regular basis, change the policy. Policies in place to follow, because it protects the town, it protects the system, and it charges the applicant accordingly for the services provided. And being property owner of multiple parcels of property that are not serviced by town sewer and water, having town sewer and water is a great benefit, especially on the commercial side, both on restaurant and the apartment building side. Without it, septic systems cost way more than the privilege fees. So I would personally, I'd make a motion that we stick with the policies and approve the fees accordingly with our current policies.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Peter, want to do a roll call vote? You want more discussion?
Sure, just real quick, the charge as requested would be approximately $7,500. So they save about $3,500.
Okay.
It would cut it by about a third.
I think if you have 3 apartment buildings in three apartments, long term, I think the services that you will get from the town on sewer and water side far outweigh your privilege fees. And I think the fees are in line and fair. So
I want to take a roll call vote, Peter.
Sure. Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
Great. So that will apply to both. We'll just apply that motion to both 105 and 109 and anything else moving forward. Again, I'm sure this won't be the last time that this comes in front of you, because it's one thing for me to give them the information and maybe say no, but they always have the right to appeal my decision to you for the final verdict. So
Peter, real quick, is there a reason that those 2 particular buildings are not in the Exxon Mobil loop? I know the water's running right in front of them now.
sure. So the main reason that ExxonMobil extended water up Masonic Home Road was for the sole purpose of tying in the overlook. And they did that not for contamination reasons, but to get their flow. They needed the overlook to connect and take their 35,000 gallons per day to have enough flow to get turnover in the water line, so that water line would be viable and the water wouldn't go stagnant.
Are there other properties or buildings along the ExxonMobil water route that aren't connected, that aren't included, Peter, besides this one in the agreement?
So Masonic Home Road, those properties, and also H. Putnam Road. The water line was installed there, not for contamination reasons, but for pressure reasons.
But those people have the ability to tie in if they want to. They just have to pay the fee.
Correct.
I got that.
And they have to incur the cost of making the connection. So part of the agreement with ExxonMobil, the settlement agreement, is that all fees for the town of Charlton, privilege fees, tie-in fees, all that was waived. So that's
Right.
why we're not doing these type of privilege fees for every property that's connected. As part
Gotcha.
as part of their connection.
Thank you. Let's see, 7 o'clock meeting, Peter, Beta.
Yes, Bob Mackey is on the line. And the main reason we'll be talking about today is the water line routes analysis to get us from Buffinville up to our current distribution system. So Bob is here. I'll just turn it over to him.
Good evening. How is everyone today?
Right about.
Peter, which do you want to go over first? You want to go over the road or the routing analysis?
We can go over the routing analysis first.
Okay. Do you want me to share a screen or does folks have it in front of them?
Probably be better to share a screen as you're talking, so you can go ahead and so as we're going over the scenarios, you can just kind of point out what you want them to kind of focus on.
So can everyone see this?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to skip right down to the appendix first so we can see what we're talking about here. So there are 5 scenarios that we took a look at. A couple of options down leaving the site. So the site is obviously down here next to Buffinville Reservoir. For this particular option, we would come out, head north, sweep around the spillway, and then come up around, get onto Oxford Way, Oxford Road, sorry. And then we would tie into the existing system up in this area. So that is one option. The second option is basically the first, same as the first, with the exception of when we get to Richardson Corner Road, we would actually start to head east and then up onto Route 20. And we would connect into the existing pump station that's currently offline. This would also require reactivating some of this line, excuse me, on Route 20 that is inactive. But it would be nice to kind of gain use of that infrastructure that's sitting there not being utilized.
Is that the black line, Bob?
That's the black line, exactly. And that's because of the interbasin transfer issue that you had with Oxford, that all that pipe was installed, pump stations, a tank, and unfortunately it's empty. This next option is basically the same as the first option, only rather than dealing with the spillway, because there is some possible issue with the spillway as far as where exactly the underground structures are, the drains, the footings for it. I mean, there's a couple of ways around it. We could try to dig around it or literally drill under it. But another option would be literally to just go around. Adds pipe onto the job, but it would eliminate, you know, all the unknowns in here. And then from there, we show it tying into the existing system. And obviously, you know, another option, another spin on this option would be to head up to the pump station. Option 4, excuse me, would be to go under the lake. So in this option, we would set up a launching pit on this side, a receiving pit on this side, and drill the line underneath the lake, following the existing easement that we've been told the gas is amenable to. I'll get into the pros and cons of that in a moment, but we continue across to Partridge and then head north up onto Richardson and then connect to the system or go up to Route 20. And then the final option would be similar to 4, come up, launching pit, receiving pit, drill across the reservoir, and then come up Putnam Road and then up and into the system. So those are the 5 basic options we looked at. I mean, there's a whole bunch of sub options, but we wanted to just kind of give you an idea of what the basic options were. Now, as far as drilling, I did want to caution a little bit about drilling through here because we've got the existing gas that's going to be in there. And the problem when you're drilling these types of lines is obviously we can't see underneath the reservoir. We'd have to do a lot more geotech information. But if we were to hit a large outcrop or boulder, the drilling head can literally bounce. And, you know, if it ever bounced and turned toward the gas line, that could be not good.
Aren't
So
those abandoned lines?
They're currently not in use, but they're not abandoned.
Okay.
So I've been in contact with a representative from Buckeye Pipeline, and as I've said before, they haven't said no to that option yet to allowing us access to the easement. But as Bob said, directional drilling with the unknowns doesn't seem to be really viable. So my thought is if we were going to try and cross there, if we were to get access, would be to work with the Army Corps and just, you know, dig out a little bit near the shoreline to get our 4 foot of coverage, and then just somewhat lay the pipe on top of the lake floor and try and bed it after that, so that it's somewhat protected from boats and anchors and that type of thing.
Right.
Rather than
Actually,
having
by
to
DP
directional
standards, you got to be 5 feet down. We checked on that.
even if it's on the bottom of the lake.
Yeah, I mean, we might be able to get relief from that, but we'd have to meet with DEP to see if they would give us relief, which is possible. I mean, we're out in the middle of a reservoir.
So I guess, Mr. Chair, just to kind of, the main reason I wanted Beta to do this exercise is so that we could get some initial answers to kind of what our train of thought was. And I think as you look at this chart with pricing, you know, a lot of it is, you know, kind of estimated.
Is planning level at this point, right?
But also as you look at the static head in feet and stuff like that, we could probably do a pump station on our property, but once we get up to the existing infrastructure, Bob, would we be able to carry enough pressure, you think, to really, if our Route 20 tank was to come online, would we be able to get enough pressure at the pump station on Gill Road to get us all the way to that tank?
Possibly. You know, we haven't run the detailed hydraulics, but I mean, you've got 2 basic options. One, you could build a small booster on your property, bring it up to the system, and then put another small booster to match the system. The other option would be to put the booster down where we are and then oversize the water main a bit to knock the, so we're just looking at static heads. We're not even looking at the friction losses for the pipe moving along the way. The friction losses could be substantial for the length of run that we're talking almost 5 miles in some cases. So it's a lot of pressure. The other thing we'd have to consider too is, are we going to have users along the way? If it's a strict transmission line, we can drive the pressures up. If we've got homeowners along the way, it might not be a good idea. So if I had to give you an answer now, I would say probably 2 stations, probably one on property and then one near the system.
So that's why I called you and asked you to include the route over to Route 20 where that pump station's already in existence.
Right, because then you would save that station on those options.
Right, and that station was designed to work with that Charlton tank up on Route 20.
Right.
So I think if we're
Is
going
the
to
ultimate
install,
goal- the ultimate goal to get this water to that tank, is that the ultimate goal?
if you want this water to be able to supply water to our system, it has to get to that tank. Yes, it can't just get to the system and then not have enough pressure to go anywhere else.
That's right.
Because where we're tying on to our system is pretty much one of the lowest points it is. So it's not like you're going to tie in there and then it's just going to go wherever you want.
I'm assuming, and I don't know, maybe I'm totally wrong by this. I'm assuming the town of Southbridge would not let us hook up our water to their water, correct?
No, so they could. So if you remember, the town of Southbridge built their water system to service the turnpike rest areas. So we could go ahead and turn that back. So all they do is service the turnpike rest areas. And then we could take and get water into our tank and service the rest of the infrastructure in Charlton, and maybe activate, I guess, and definitely activate a portion of that Route 20 line that's currently inactive from Richton's Corner Road west to North Main Street.
Is there enough water on this one particular site to be able to pump it to that tank, fill that tank up and service our customers
Yes.
that we
So
currently have?
if this tank has 225,000 gallons per day, the existing customers in that area is probably right around 100,000 gallons per day.
Okay.
I mean, it's not the panacea where we'll be all set for the next 50 years. But
Sure.
it will get us started, and that will be, our system that we would operate. And then Southbridge could still operate the portion that they're operating. We just have to kind of disconnect and have a couple redundant shutoffs so there's no cross connection. And then the nice thing about that is we can use Southbridge as our redundant water supply if there's an issue with our water system as well, because the lines are still there. So, I mean, it'll take a little bit more coordination than that. I might be oversimplifying it a little bit, but it would be nice to keep that connection viable in case we have any problems in the future. But again, if this does happen, we're still going to be looking for more possible water for our own community. And with Southbridge operating in town, if we have to adjust which area of town gets water from where, we can do that by just moving some valves around and getting more water from Southbridge to one area and less from Buffinville in the future.
So I guess I'm jumping way ahead of the cart here, but has anybody inspected that tank? I mean, is that tank in good and ready condition?
The tank has been inspected, yes. Not in a
Through
while,
the chair,
but
finally.
Go ahead, Russ.
So, Peter, a quick question on the grants with Beta. At this point in time, this is pretty much the end of the road with all the grants that we have worked out over the years.
this is the end of the road for the FY20 grant that was approved. I'm still working with DEP to approve the scope of work that we've talked about for FY21 and FY22 for their approval.
And that would pertain to the access road.
Yes, two things. FY21, we had a little bit of funding to do exploration on other properties that we have the availability to get access to bring Peter Newton on board and do a true geotech analysis of a couple of parcels and determine whether or not it'd be worth going there and drilling some test wells to see if there might be another possible water supply on those properties. And then that was FY21. And FY22, the most recent scope of work that you approved was to fund the development of the access road.
Okay. The reason why I ask at this point in time is because the main question that we're at this point in time is really, do we branch off of Southbridge and go on our own, stand on our own 2 feet? And that's really the brunt of the whole discussion, what we're talking about doing once we start putting pipes in the ground from Buffinville. And I think that whole subject matter is really a night's meeting in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to be talked about and discussed really before we go any further with this. Naturally, we wanted to get this information so that we know the possibilities down the road of what we can and can't do and some potential costs to look at the overall situation and say, absolutely not. It's going to be a big loser for the town of Charlton, or say, yeah, that's potentially the direction we want to go in and it's affordable. So I think we do have that information from Beta. And at this point in time, we have to stop and we have to say, okay, are we chasing a bus down the road that we don't want to be on? Or is it going to stop and that's the direction we want to take? So I'm not looking to waste everyone's time with discussions of future possibilities that we might not even go to. I think at this point in time, this is paperwork that we need to process after making some other decisions. But that's just my personal viewpoint on it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just think this is information that I think you need to have at this point. And again, I think I was just trying to go a little bit deeper because Bob gave a quick overview. And, you know, it's and like Bob said, there's a lot of secondary input that went into each routing scenario that he kind of just glanced over. So by no means am I looking for you guys to approve which scenario you want to move forward with tonight. I think we're not even close to being there yet. But I think as we, again, as you holistically look at this project, this is good information to have. So we're not just guessing like we were before. And this will also tell me if I need to spend time dealing with Buckeye, or if I can just send her an email tomorrow and thank her for her time. But at this time, it's not really a viable option for us based on the information we have. So it kind of completes a circle for me in some ways, where I can take, probably from the sounds of, you know, talking to Bob, take the directional drilling under Buffinville off of the table at this time, until we may be back in touch with it in the future if something changes. But as of right now, it doesn't seem like it's really a viable option.
Hey, Bob, are there other ways to get across that body of water besides the drilling? I mean, did they put pipes on top of the water or anything like that?
There are two basic options. You know, one is drilling and one's the other that Pete was talking about, where you would dig a relatively shallow, you know, 3 to 5 foot trench, you know, if we can get DP to buy into it, and then lay the pipe right into the trench. Pete alluded to it. I mean, if the problem with having the pipe up on the surface is if you have a small boat with an anchor, in theory, it could grab onto the pipe and break it. Floating on the surface, I don't think Army Corps would even entertain that. I think everything has to be open for recreation. So I think those are your two options.
So again, this is mostly presented for information, again, just to kind of complete this portion of the project, so we have some, you know, some not hard numbers, but some ideas and some scenarios and what they look like, and you know, just kind of keep it there for informational purposes and go from there. If there's no other questions on that, the other reason Bob is here to talk about the RFP for the access road.
Right. So I believe, let me see if, can you see this now, the plans?
Yes, it's switched.
Okay. So we've completed the drawings, we've completed the specifications. So the contract documents are ready. It's, you know, just to go over it quickly. So this is the parcel of land we're speaking of. The wells are located down here. The pumping station, you know, it would be located up in this area. This is the existing conditions, nothing fancy. These were the wetlands. So we do have an intermittent stream that we will be crossing. So there is a culvert contained in the project that we have to include, which would be part of the order of conditions. This is the roadway, talking a 16-foot wide roadway, Cape Cod berms on either side, paved.
Bob, the whole road isn't paved, correct? Just the top portion.
I'm sorry, yes, the top portion, right.
Get just about back to the pump station area where
Correct.
the pavement
Right.
stops.
From there down, we could put in gravel. So this is our transition out on Gale. We come in, pumping station would be planned for here, sweep down. This would be that culvert crossing that I spoke about. Basically, the shape of the, in case you're wondering about the shape, we're basically trying to follow a contour so that we could minimize cuts, although we are doing a substantial cut in an effort to see if we can, you know, keep the price of the project down. The material is going to be pretty good, nice gravel. So we're hoping there's a value to that that would reduce the overall cost.
Plus that cut can be used for the fill on the property, correct?
That's right, yeah, for the cuts and fills, exactly. When we get down to the bottom here, we have a series of wells. I believe there's 5 wells, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we've flattened out this area for vehicle access for installing and then maintaining the wells in the future. And you can see that we're not too far from the reservoir's edge itself. Continue on.
Bob, can
Excuse
you
me.
go back up to that other map? Can
Further
you
up?
just, no, to the one you were just on.
Oh, this
Sorry.
one, okay, yep.
Can you just identify where the cart path road is that we've currently used? Just so that the commissioners can see it. It's just the,
Right in here, right?
yes, just that hash mark line right there. So for those of you who have walked in, you can see how you walk in and then make that sharp left-hand turn. That
Right.
current cart path is not viable to get the drilling equipment up there to drill the next stage of wells, which would be probably turn into the actual production wells. So we can't do, well, plus we want to take, 20 feet off the top of that hill anyway, so you wouldn't want to pay for that additional depth of drilling.
Right.
And then just take all the material out from around. So unfortunately, I guess the next step to go any further with this property would be to, again, we have this access road designed and permitted. It's approved from planning board and from conservation. So we're going to put it out to bid and see if there is any value in the excess material and what it might cost us to have this installed. And historically, the DEP has been giving us, an annual grant of approximately $200,000. If we get RFPs back from, and the price is a little more, we might be able to ask them for more, or we might be able to do it in a 2-phased approach where you do a portion of it one fiscal year and finish the rest the following fiscal year to get full funding to do that from Mass DEP and the grant that we've been getting historically. So unfortunately with COVID, it's hard to get FaceTime with members from DEP. It's easy to send emails, but we've been waiting for responses. Even to try and get a remote meeting with them hasn't really been the easiest. So it's really hard to kind of keep them abreast of where we are. But I think, again, the RFP is ready to go. So it'll be interesting to see what we get for replies. I know there are a few local developers who are interested in maybe doing the work for us, and we'll see, who might come out of the woodwork as part of the bid process. And then once we get those bids in hand, I think it'll be important to really go sit down with DEP and the Army Corps again and bring everyone back up to speed to where we are, give them a nice thorough update, and then talk about next steps and see if we can maybe get funding to just keep on taking this one step at a time. Do any board members have any concerns about taking this next step as far as the access road and getting that put in place?
Personally, I'm excited to hear what contractors have to say. Personally, I have always viewed this as a situation of if we could get the work done in lieu of a trading situation, that's optimum for the town. Going further down the road with additional grant money and spending funds out of pocket per se, potentially to install the road, that again would go into the bigger discussion of what are we ultimately doing for direction. And again, I think we need to get the proposals from contractors to hear where everything is at before we make that decision. But that's going to be another key piece of the information to say, well, now it's going to start to get expensive, or again, we can proceed and not spend a lot of money here to get an improvement for the town done.
Anybody else? All right,
Through the chair, if I might.
yeah, go ahead.
At this point in time, how long do we think it would take to receive bids on this project? What would be the time frame you'd be looking at, Peter, of getting back bids?
I believe the RFP is ready to go, so we could put that out in the next, week to 10 days and put whatever due date we want on it. So if it goes out, say by July 23rd, and we want to give them until, say, August 27th, to give them 4 weeks, let it sit out there for a couple weeks and give them a couple weeks to review it and, maybe come walk the property and do all that. Yeah. Bob, do you think 4 weeks is enough time?
I think that makes sense. It'll be interesting too, because we're getting all kinds of weird, not feedback, but depending on the project that we're bidding, COVID has affected everything as far as supply chains. Fortunately, here we don't really have a lot of materials to bring in, but I'll be curious to see how COVID affects it.
Right. And this RFP also has the water line being installed from the well field out to the pump station, correct, Bob?
It has the well and the water main, but it also has the electrical conduits to connect the pump station to the wells.
So this, again, this isn't just the access road. So it's not like we're going to do the access road now and then have to dig that up in the future.
Right.
So exactly what is the materials needed, Peter, besides the gravel, which is already there, and conduit and pipe?
Again, the culvert for the stream crossing is, not super pricey, but it's definitely expensive. It's not like just putting a piece of corrugated pipe there and covering it. So there's head walls, there's riprap. There's probably is it a cement box culvert, Bob, that has to be designed?
Yeah, we've actually been going with RCP. Try to keep the price down. It's big, but it's RCP.
Did we ever get a final calculation on what was the yardage that would be removed from the site?
I believe it was 49,000 yards.
Something along that line, right?
And again, because as I calculated it before, I was looking at the initial route where we walked in, where the white hash marks are. So there was a lot more cutting to be done in that area, that by going this more direct route, there isn't as much cutting and maybe a little bit more filling, because it brings you through a little bit of a lower area. And
So there's 50,000 yards of excess on this job, roughly.
Correct. I believe that's what Bob's someone in Bob's firm calculated.
Yes.
After the fills and everything. It was be approximately 49,000 yards.
It's after the road's built?
Yep. I believe so. Correct, Bob?
It was something in that range, yes.
But that was after the fill for the road, correct?
What's
Right,
that worth?
that's,
So what do you need, Peter? A motion to put this out to bid?
Sure, that'd be great.
I'll make a motion that we put this out to bid as written.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? I have a question, Russ, just because you're kind of in the field. What's 50,000 yards of gravel worth?
Nothing
Okay.
in this situation.
Okay. Go ahead, Peter, for a roll call vote. Unless there's more.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Redlack. Mr. Redlack. Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. So Bob, you just want to follow up with me tomorrow and we'll see what we have to do to get that out to bid?
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you for all the information.
Bob.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, everyone, have a good evening. And are there any other last questions before I sign off?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, have a
Thank you,
great
Bob.
evening.
Take
All
care.
right, take care.
Thank you, sir.
New business. Fiscal year 2022 senior abatements.
Yes. So Sue has got in the FY 22 senior abatements and she has attached a list for your approval. All the applications on the list meet the requirements necessary to receive the abatement.
Peter, can you just tell us what the criteria for getting a senior abatement is? Got to be a senior citizen over 65 to fill out an application?
Yes, fill out an application, show proof of age, and there has to be at least 50%, Sue, has to be over 65 or they get a reduced abatement.
And it has to be their permanent residence, not a summer home.
I believe we have we have everyone reapplying. We have 2 new ones, correct, Sue?
No, we have 4 new ones.
4 new applicants.
Do you need a motion on this or anything, Peter?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it can be as simple as a motion to approve the list presented.
Can I get a
I'll make a
motion?
motion as printed.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Peter, roll call vote.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Redlack,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye. All right,
Thank
moving
you.
on, approval of letter for the school loop water line activation.
Yes, so as we've been discussing, the school loop has been activated since April 7th. Kleinfelder has sent out, I believe, 1 certified letter so far. And I know that the commission, we talked about sending a certified letter as well, but Sue's discussion with Kleinfelder, they've asked us to install not to send a letter not certified. So Sue's been working with them on the letter to make sure that we kind of say everything correctly. And Sue will also work with Maura from Kleinfelder to get the correct list of residents to send it to, to make sure we don't send it to residents that are already connected or that are already committed to connect. So we believe that the letter is ready to go. I'll probably send it out the beginning of August, Sue.
No, she would like it to be sent out in July.
Okay.
Their Kleinfelder is going to do another mailing in August, and they would like ours to go out in July.
Peter, just a thought on this letter. Should we put on here, it says, additional privilege fees will be charged to residents who connect after this 12-month period. Should we let them know what that cost is? It's not $50.
We could, but I don't want them to think that that would be their total cost to connect, because they also have to, they also incur the cost of the contractor and everything else as well. So
Sure.
now I don't want them to
Through
think,
the
okay,
chair,
Go ahead, Russ.
Dave, I think that, we're going through the motions of making sure that, all the people who we can reach will connect, but you're always going to get a certain number of people who just say, well, I don't want to pay a water bill. And,
Sure.
they don't see the benefit to them at this point in time. And, wild horses can't drag them to making the decision. I don't think it comes down to money at all. It's just really more of notification, making sure everybody's aware. And the cost is not really the determining factor for them,
Okay.
But I could be wrong. But, and again, you don't, like Peter said, you don't want to misstate what their obligation is going to be, because then they'll be back and they'll say, oh, well, you didn't tell me it was going to be this as well, and this, and,
Sure.
So if you don't lay out the whole process, it could be very confusing.
I gotcha. Anybody else have any questions? Need a motion for this, Peter, I assume?
Yes, please.
Somebody make a motion?
I'll make a motion. We send the letter.
I second that.
Roll call vote, Peter.
All right, Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Redlack,
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye. All right, old business, waterline construction update.
Yes, so, I mean, as we just discussed, ExxonMobil sent out their first letter to residents knowing about the 1-year grace period to connect. That letter is attached. And as we just discussed, he was working with them. Service connections. Albanese Brothers continues to install service lines to homes and work with their subcontractors to make the actual connection inside of the house. Kleinfelder has been providing detailed information for each connection to sue as they take place. And that is about it.
Any questions from anybody on that? Nothing. Other business? Nothing. Next meeting.
Next meeting is going to be August 9th.
Wow, it's like summer's gone by already.
Yes, unfortunately.
All right, Sue, I'm assuming we'll need to come in and sign stuff for you
Yes, please.
by Wednesday at noon.
Tomorrow would be better, but yeah, by Wednesday at noon.
Perfect.
Does anybody have any questions about anything else?
At this point in time, I would just like to put a placeholder or talk about putting one for the month of September. I would say 2 weeks after our regular meeting to discuss the overall picture of really consecutive, our own 2 feet, staying with Southbridge, blah, 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 blah. At that point in time, we should have the bids back, hopefully on this Buff and Bill project. That mixed in with the information we received from Bob this evening, I think will give us great insight on that future direction. So I think a meeting pretty much dedicated just to that subject is really in order at this point in time.
I agree. So I said that sometime in September, Russ, second or third week in September, Peter.
Sure. Yeah. So again, so we'll have one meeting before that. So we'll meet August 9th. And then the first Monday in September is Labor Day. So we'll have our regular meeting the following Monday. And we can either meet that following week or the week after. Depending, I guess we can talk about that at our first meeting in September to see what we have for information. And
Yeah,
see
that's fine.
when we'll be ready.
I'm not
But yeah.
necessarily looking for a firm date today.
Yep.
Just want to get it on everyone's radar and,
Yep.
and say, this is something I think we should do.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So that's it. I won't drag out the meeting this evening any further.
We all thank you.
In that case, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Perfect. And second,
Second,
go ahead, Peter.
second.
All right, Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Mr. Ridlack.
Jack
Mr.
left
Ga-
early.
Mr. Gagnon,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sue.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night.